Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'd like to bring this meeting to order, please. Good afternoon and welcome to this hearing of the Budget and Finance Committee. Today is Monday, August 26th, 2019. I'm Paul Krikorian, joined by my colleagues, Mr. Price and Mr. Blumenfield, and we're ready to begin today's meeting. And so we're going to go ahead and first take up our multi-agenda item speakers. I'd like to invite up Mr. Previn to speak first, please. Mr. Previn?
Yes. Are you going to be punching it with the general public comment? Or? No.
Go ahead and begin your 2 minutes.
Not the general public comment, just the 2 minutes? Okay, thank you, sir. It's Eric Previn, and conflict of interest has been in the news lately. It's on the agenda today, and two specific items. They'd like a waiver for Nixon and Peabody, and also for a different firm called, I forget, Foley and Lardner. I think we should pay very close attention. I think we should ought to get McWilliams up and in here to talk about the CEQA panel, because you've got Burke Williams also fighting against the developers in Colony Holdings, LLC, on behalf of the city. And I noticed that you have another item where the development team is being kind of blamed in the lawsuit because it's an alley, sir, a concealed trap in Burbank Boulevard, and they're very anxious about how it was built this way and who's responsible, because obviously it's a concealed trap. So I don't know. I know Mr. Krikorian doesn't like to discuss the refunds, but there is one for Roleumpus U.S., critical that the U.S. be in there, Commodities LLC for $106,000. Nothing wrong with rolling that right out the door. Followed by the Southern Cal Healthcare Inc. of about $123,000, which is a very, very nice one. And you've got a series of attorneys transferring into these cases, so that's often a red flag. Not always, but on case number 3, you have a Dominguez firm coming in, and on the first case that I mentioned, item 1, Todd A. Porter from Morro Bay is transferring in. We look forward to his participation in that case. Now, as for the body shop matter, there was not enough sufficient information for me to understand what was specifically going on there. But I would simply say about the conflict of interest, sir, when we have firms that are working for the city, also representing parties and matters against the city, it's very murky. And sometimes they're representing it doesn't seem evident or obvious, like with the case where Tom Peters had his fingers in the pie on all those disgusting matters, and like where the DWP, frankly, I don't want to bring up the FBI. I know you're trying to keep that under wraps. We're trying to move forward. Kretz is not here yet. Bonin is busy. Let's move forward.
Stick with the agenda, sir.
Thank you. And you won't be taking general public comment until after?
Not at this time.
That's very generous. Thank you.
All right. So I don't have any... I don't have any cards for you, Mr. Herman, but since I have 1, 2, 3, 4 fake names, I will invite you up to speak next.
For the record, I signed up as Bagdasarian.
You can do whatever you wish. I'm calling Armando Herman to the microphone right now.
Bagdasarian, I signed up as. Read the public comment card. I signed up as Bagdasarian with the ending letter H. And so it begins, and the shooting. What nig has done anything right? Yolanda Beleza Pais versus the city of Los Angeles. I know exactly how you feel on alleged trip and fall incident regarding my complaint of a curb and ramp and sidewalk repair. August 13, 2019, Eric Garcetti, the mayor. Sidewalk access request SR number 1-6941-20641 on August 24th, 2017. How far does the nigger want to go? Willits versus Los Angeles states you must spend $30 million to fix our sidewalk and street infrastructure. Fuck you. You haven't done shit. In addition to Joseph Garbutt, a sidewalk in front of 5601 Southwestern Avenue, you haven't done shit. 09-50529, Walter Edward Bazarian, for the record said, regarding fuck the nigger, he will have a .50 caliber to his head soon. What nigga's done anything right? You don't fix our sidewalks and streets, And so it begins, and discussing shooting the nigger's car, if I could, as brought out by the First Amendment, United States versus Bagdasarian number 0950529, 2011, U.S. APP LEX 14684, 9th Circuit, July 19, 2011. Fuck you, 42 U.S.C. 1983.
Thank you. And Mr. Bonin is also with us. Now, is there anybody else who wanted to speak on any agenda items in public comment? All right, seeing none, public comment on all agenda items is now closed. And Mr. Kretz is here as well. So we have a full contingent. And members, I would like to propose items 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 for consent approval. Unless you have questions or concerns about those issues.
11, 12, 13.
10 through 14.
Good by me.
Mr. Kress, I was just proposing 10 through 14 for consent approval. That's
fine.
all right. Seeing no objection, those items 10 through 14 are approved. That'll take us now into closed session. So we'll begin with item number 1 on closed session, please. This meeting is still in order, so if I could please go ahead and call item number 7, please.
Item number 7 is the city attorney report relative to a request for waiver of conflict of interest for city bond, disclosure, and special tax counsel, Nixon Peabody LLP, and its concurrent representation of Atwater Infrastructure and Low on the Bureau of Sanitation's Clean Water Campus project.
Do we have anybody to report on item 7?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Our office requests for a waiver of conflict of interest for the City Bond and Disclosure Counsel firm of Nixon Peabody LLP. They're on our qualified bond and disclosure counsel list to serve as counsel to Atwater Infrastructure and Low on the Bureau of Sanitation's Clean Water Campus project. So Nixon Peabody, like I said, is on the CAO's qualified list for debt issuances. There's only so many firms that do this work, and so Sanitation is partnering up with Goodwill to build a what they call the Clean Water Campus project, which will serve as their administrative building. And the structure will include potential P3, public-private partnership, potentially bonds, and potentially new market tax credits. And there's only a handful of firms that do this work, and so we're requesting the waiver.
Okay, so their only representation of the city has been around issuance of debt?
Correct.
The actual issuance?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with litigation?
Correct.
Okay. And in the scope of their representation of the city around bond debt issuance, are they in a position to receive any confidential information that would relate in any way to the representation?
We don't believe that they have, and a lot of the city's debt issuances are all, they're public. There's a disclosure document, and it's a very transparent process. So there's no confidential information that they've gained, and it will be a different set of attorneys in any case.
Okay. Members, questions on this?
I think you asked everything I
Okay.
would have to ask.
Okay, if there's no other questions, no objections, it will be the action of the committee to approve the recommendation of the city attorney.
Okay, great.
That'll bring up item number 8.
Item number 8 is a city attorney report relative to a request for a waiver of conflict of interest in retaining the legal services of the law firm Foley and Lardner LLP to provide specialized legal expertise to the city's 3 pension plans in the areas of health law and data privacy and security.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Would the committee like a brief overview of the report?
Yes.
The city's 3 pension plans are interested in retaining the legal services of Foley and Lardner. This follows in coordination with executive management at the 3 pension plans. We've conducted a competitive solicitation for this type of specialized work to assist the plans in health law, data privacy, and data security work.
I believe that this was the top-rated firm, and so there was a unanimous recommendation that the pension plan be allowed to proceed with retaining Foley and Lardner to do this work. It's very specialized, and this firm has a very specialized, unique background that qualifies them to provide this work to the pension plans.
Okay, and what was the nature of the previous work that gave rise to the potential for conflict?
So Foley and Lardner represented the Community Redevelopment Agency in the lawsuit filed by the Department of Justice against the CRA and against the city. That's the false claims litigation. And it was a different attorney representing the CRA. Pam Johnson is the attorney representing them in the false claims action. Recently, they settled the litigation, that is DOJ and the CRA. That litigation has not actually gone before the court and been approved. There is a fairness hearing that is going to be conducted hopefully within the next few weeks. The reason there's a fairness hearing is one of the Ketam plaintiffs, Mei Ling, has objected to the settlement between DOJ and the CRA. The attorney who will be working for the pension system is not Pam Johnson. There's no information that was obtained during the representation of the CRA that could in any way affect their representation of the pension plan, and conversely, no information that will be obtained through representation of the pension plan that will in affect the CRA's representation, the Foley Lardner's representation of the CRA. The reason that we felt it was important to come to you for a waiver is that despite the fact that there's been a settlement between the DOJ and the CRA, we've been informed, we've not seen the actual settlement agreement, but we've been informed that one of the provisions requires that the CRA assist the DOJ, and the Foley firm, Pam Johnson, would continue to work with the CRA in whatever that assistance required.
Okay. All right, members? Mr. Kretz?
I actually have nothing to ask you about, but I do object to the fact that we've been hearing goat noises throughout your testimony from Mr. Spindler. It's been very difficult to concentrate on your testimony.
Yeah, everyone in the room is expected to be not disturb the work of the committee, please. Mr. Bonin, anything on that? Anything else, members? Okay. If there's no objection, then it will be the action of the committee to approve the city attorney's recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. That'll bring up item number 9.
Item number 9 is the Municipal Facilities Committee report relative to authorizing the General Services Department to initiate Phase 1 of a 2-phased project to replace the existing body shop located at 2310 East 7th Street for an estimated cost of $5.27 million. The Information Technology and General Services Committee approved this matter on August 14th, 2019.
Hello, my name is Lisa Johnson-Smith. I'm from the CAO's office. The GSD requests authority to replace the existing 7th Street body shop located at 2310 East 7th Street. GSD reports that there are critical safety hazards that warrant its replacement. Our office with GSD has reviewed multiple options. We reviewed a repair and upgrading the facility. We have a March 20th, 2019 BOE Field Investigative Report, which determined that this option is not feasible due to the extensive repairs that were needed to upgrade or repair the facility. We explored the option of purchase or leasing a suitable building or body shop. The GSD reviewed facilities within a 7-mile radius. And of all the different facilities that we looked at, we only found one facility, which is outside the city of Los Angeles in the city of Bell at an estimated cost of $6 million. We also looked at the option of temporarily relocating the body shop into the existing tire shop, which is at that site. We have a rough order of estimate of $4.9 million and an 18 to 24 months to complete the consolidation. However, that would result in undue hardship for both the body and the tire shop. Based on our review, we recommend the most effective and expedient option is the replacement of the body shop. The estimated time for the construction of a new body shop is 18 to 24 months. GSD has identified approximately $5 million in available GSD petroleum products general fund encumbrances from the year 2016-17 and 17-18 to fund Phase 1 of a new body shop that will be completely operational, but is not alt fuel compliant, plus temporary accommodations during the construction. The council approval is needed to use the prior year general fund encumbrances for this purpose. If special fund encumbrances are reappropriated for this purpose, then it would be GSD's responsibility to repay any special funds inadvertently used to fund this project. The total project would be 2 phases, estimated at $7.8 million. Phase 1 cost is approximately $5 million. And we would request, GSD would request the future funding in a future budget as part of the budget process of approximately $2.8 million. But if not approved, they would be able to have a fully functional building at a $5 million budget. Available for questions.
So first of all, can you differentiate what the two phases are? What will be finished after phase one and what still remains to be funded in phase two? And also related to that, the phase one budget estimates total costs of a little over $5.25 million, and there's only $5 million that's been identified in funding in my notes. So we're starting off a little bit short already.
Correct. At the time, GSD had identified a funding source that needed to be approved. That's approximately $300,000 that needed to be approved by AQMD. It was their Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Trust Funds. And because at the time it went to MFC, we did not have approval for it. It's about $284,000. We and the MFC recommendation recommend that we remove that recommendation from their report and seek that approval from AQMD. And if it's approved, it would be used on project phase, the phase two. AQMD has said that this particular funding for this purpose, because it's for a body shop and not for an alt fuel facility, it would not necessarily meet the requirement. So that funding is now not going to be part of phase two. Okay. So the actual budget is $5 million. They have revised their table, and I can submit a new table showing those fundings to the clerk. What you would get for $5 million is design and permitting and some excavation. A building would have some plumbing, mechanics, et cetera. It would be a functional building that they could use. However, a lot of things that they would need, and I think GSD would probably be better to respond to some of these, would be deferred. Some of the deferred things would be more of a build-out for offices and bathrooms and break rooms that would come at a later phase. A spray booth that they would need will come at a later phase. They have the demolition of the existing building is at a later phase, so they have another location on the site that they would put this new facility. So they've moved some costs to a later phase that if we don't get funding, then those would not happen.
I see. And then during the 18 to 20 months of construction time, how are they going to continue to perform their responsibilities?
They have some temporary accommodations that they would be placed in so that they could do their work. And I'll let GSD respond to that.
Hi, my name is Richard Colson, Director of Fleet Services. So the main issue with the current body shop is the internal structure of it. So what we would end up doing, they do have some awnings that's attached to the existing building. So we'd use the existing awning portion, and then we would add some temporary awning space for the body guys to work, again, outside of the structure.
Okay. Still on the same site?
It would be on the same site. Yes, it would be on the same site. And we would bring in temporary office space and restrooms and break rooms for them, which would be a temporary building that we would, trailers that we were bringing for them during that construction phase.
Okay. So wouldn't this project be MICLA eligible?
It would be. However, we do not have any approved MICLA funding that's been budgeted for this purpose.
Well, you don't have any budgeting that's been approved for this purpose.
Correct. That's
you don't
true.
have, and that's kind of the point.
Right.
In fact, since you mentioned that, let me go back a couple of steps. This is a critical project for the body shop. It's in terrible shape. It does need to be replaced. So why wasn't it in this year's budget?
It was in this year's budget. There was a request for $11 million in this year's budget. That was not
didn't
approved.
Make it through the process. Okay. So then that brings me, I guess, to my next question, which is the petroleum account funding.
Mm-hmm.
So the petroleum account is a subject of a lot of questions by members every year, has been since I've been on the budget committee, in part because of the wild fluctuation of petroleum costs. It's very difficult to make a budget assumption that we can rely on about how much is going to be needed. And so it would make sense to me that in some years we don't expend all of that. That makes sense because of the fluctuation of petroleum prices. But was a little surprised to find that we had rollover funding or unspent money from 3 budget years ago that still hadn't been spent. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that.
Excuse me.
Put your phone
Yes,
down.
Renee V.
Put
Augustine
your
with
phone
General
down.
Services.
Put your phone down. You're attempting to distract the members of this committee. It won't be tolerated. I'll ask you to leave. If you do it again, I'll ask you to leave. Sorry, go right ahead.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Council Member. Due to the volatility of fuel, we try our best to project, and we want to ensure that there is enough funding at the end of the fiscal year to pay the bills. And so sometimes the things don't pan out in terms of the fuel prices aren't as high as we had anticipated, like what you're seeing now, where fuel prices are dropping. So this is what's left over in the petroleum account that would have naturally reverted back to its original funding source. So that's what you're seeing here.
Yeah. So it would have reverted to the general fund.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
So therein lies my issue with this, because on an annual basis, we need to be able to evaluate and make the decision over whether to roll over even the unspent money in a sub-account, in a separate account like that. That's really a decision that should be made by the council and the mayor in creating the budget. I think it may be good policy to have kind of a reserve fund within the petroleum account in order to meet those needs of fluctuation, but that's a discussion that we're going to have going forward, members, I think, that has to happen here and not internally.
That is what has happened before. Where there was money in previous fiscal years where there is money set aside in the UB.
Yeah, and there's going to be plenty of years where the price spikes,
Yes.
and we have to go dip back into the general fund or find some other alternative way to spend that. So it makes sense. I get why we do that. But then I guess the next question I would have is there any kind of nexus between that account and this expenditure, or are we really just making the decision to take it from one place and put it in another?
That could be certainly done. It would be up to council and the
Yeah.
CEO. Yes.
Either way, it's
Yeah.
general fund dollars, whether it's general
Yes.
fund dollars that are in the petroleum account or general fund dollars that are in the reserve fund. We're going to have to do this
Yes.
unless we use MICLA with general fund dollars. And MICLA will, over the long term, will be a general fund burden as well. Right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Members, questions? Mr. Bloomfield?
I agree with your point on all of that we need to look at this on its merits, and I think it's meritorious, but it's not free money. It's not found money. It's general fund money disguised as, in this account. The temporary facility, when the folks are working outdoors under the awning, is it going to change the working conditions such as subject us to the meet and confer with our labor partners? And is there a cost associated with that?
No, I don't anticipate any issues with the union at all, no. And there, the costs associated with getting the trailers for office space and break rooms and things like that, yes.
The cost on the budget is $288,000 for the temporary, as part of this within this budget for the temporary accommodations.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if there was going to be any extra cost because of the working condition issue, or make sure we've thought of that so it's not a surprise.
No, we're not anticipating anything outside of what we have in the estimate.
Okay. And it includes 110 for demolition. Does that include estimates to remove hazardous material, asbestos, and lead paint, those kinds of things?
Yes, it would.
And is it going to trigger any requirements to investigate or remediate soil or groundwater contamination usually whenever I hear body shop, a host of environmental red lights go off. And, and I've seen this locally in my district when body shops are removed. They're removed, somebody else wants to come in, and it's a nightmare what's underneath there. Has that been, and so here my little red flashing light is going off saying, is there going to be another big cost associated with remediation? Or is it because we're putting another body shop on? Are we somehow immune to that? I just want to make sure it's been thought of and that dealt with.
Well, our standards division within GSD has been out and they've done multiple core sampling throughout the yard, and they've identified that this footprint where the new body shop will go is sufficient, and there isn't expected to be anything found in the soil that would cause any additional costs at all through the soil sampling that they've done, or the core sampling that they've done.
Thank you.
Mr. Bonnet.
Thanks. I just want to follow up on Mr. Blumenfield's question about the working conditions in labor. I understand you said you don't anticipate there's going to be any problem. Are you just assuming that, or have we heard from labor that it's not an issue for them?
Well, the labor is the individuals working in the shop, and we have been attempting to get them a new body shop for quite some time. I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to come to 7th Street and see the conditions they're working in now, but they're very thankful that we've moved forward and actually successfully, gotten to a point where we can actually build something for them. So we're making it as accommodating as we can for them, and they've been a part of the process. So they're just thankful to get something.
The workers have helped figure out what the interim is going to be. They've weighed in on that.
Yes, they are fully aware of it, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, members? Mr. Kretz?
Well, you already raised the issue, but I think proactively we should look at directing that the money not be kept in this account year over year, and we either return it to the general fund or proactively establish some sort of a modest piece of this as a fund to adjust for fluctuations. But just keeping the leftovers in an account year after year is kind of bizarre and somewhat of a surprise, I suspect, to all of us.
So after this, if we approve the recommendations as they're presented, will there be any remaining funds in the petroleum account for those 2 budget years?
No, they wouldn't. This would be the remaining funding for those fiscal years. The previous fiscal year, we don't know yet if there's any remaining money. But
okay. So I think it would be good if we could get a report back to this committee on that. Let us know what, for any prior year, whether there's any unspent sums for any prior year in the petroleum account. And then in terms of policy, I don't know if a council policy change needs to be made, if we have that information. But in the coming budget deliberations, I think it's something that we should ensure going forward for each future budget, that as we look at this, because it's going to be up to us to come up with some sort of solution that works for the unpredictability of it. Because we have this trouble every year. You put a dollar amount, and you know that dollar amount is going to be wildly wrong. You just don't know which direction it's going to be wildly wrong in, because nobody can predict what happens over the course of an entire year with gasoline prices. So we have to develop a better solution for that, I think. But that's not this agenda item, so I don't want to do that now. Yeah. Mr. Bloomfield.
Just something you said I didn't quite understand. You said we don't yet know what the reserves are for the previous years. Does the money in that account get, it's not known at the end of the year? Are there expenses that filter out over future years that are attributed to past years? Why wouldn't we close the books each year and know about the previous years?
we're in the process of closing the books. We're paying out all the vendors. We're still receiving invoices at this point. So once the invoices are all paid out, then we would know.
For not just for last year, but you're saying for previous years?
No, this is just only for last year.
Okay, I thought you said, maybe I misheard you. I thought you said, well, we've got last year, we're just still figuring out the previous years, what those numbers were.
I'm sorry it's only for last year.
Okay, so previous years are closed.
Exactly, that whatever.
Great.
Yes. Yes.
I'm glad I misheard. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I guess I misheard too, so let me just make sure I understand. The $5 million in unspent petroleum money that is in the recommendation here comes from budget year 16-17 and by budget year 17-18.
Yes.
So are you confident that there is no surplus petroleum money for any budget year prior to 16-17?
I believe that money has already been swept.
Okay.
Yes.
So the discrepancy that you're not sure about is for budget year 18-19, and we just haven't closed that one out yet.
Exactly, for 18-19,
Okay.
which we just ended the fiscal year in.
Okay. Very good. Members, anything else? Any objection to moving forward with the recommendations? Okay. Without objection, it will be the action of the committee to approve the recommendations. Thank you very much. And that concludes our agenda items, members. So we'll go back to general public comment. Mr. Previn.
Thank you. It's Eric Previn from Studio City, and regarding the sweeping to the general fund there from the petroleum account, that's a very interesting activity, and I'm very pleased that GSD was able to come up with some creative ideas to apply it to their sphere, which is the body shop. In Studio City, we have a bunch of open space, not much. We have a park, which is currently being assaulted by the Rex and Park Group and BOE. They want to put a large high school regulation-sized basketball court on our open turf area. There's also a publicly accessible recreational asset known as Weddington Golf and Tennis, where Fred Weddington, Kretz will remember old Fred, made it so that the people could use that going forward. But now, Harvard Westlake, Krikorian's biggest and most cherished friends, are trying to ram it down our throat. And we would just like to put a pin in all that before they take down any more trees. They're about to take down possibly 100 trees at our local Sportsman's Lodge. I think some of you remember Stephen Ross, that jerk, has a company called
Thanks, Mr. Previn.
Soul Cycle.
Thank you, Mr. Previn.
They're fantastic, but we just...
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Your
Yes,
time
thank
has
you,
expired.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Herman. Mr. Spindler, I assume you want to speak in general public comment too. I don't see your name, but that's all I need to know. Mr. Herman.
Well, the Brown Act states we don't have to put our name anywhere other than you called a matter of the principal idea of what we're here for, our opinion. And as far as I'm concerned, the city and its employees have always targeted me and contends to target me for violating, discussing bullshit rules of your decorum. Unrelated topics that you say that are unrelated when I cite briefcases like Brandenburg versus Ohio, Watts versus United States, Wayne Spindler versus the City of Los Angeles, Michael Hunt versus the City of Los Angeles. These are all court cases, and you say that I'm off topic. I'm relating it to the scumbag politicians who have been stealing, money laundering, and taking advantage of public funds. Fuck you, Paul Krikorian, and your fat wife.
Yes. So your days of Rule 77 will soon be coming to an end in the near future. A federal court just ruled that me being thrown out of one meeting does not allow you to throw me out of a future meeting. Surprise, bitch! So also today I signed up on all the items, and you did not call my public comment card on 2 of the items in violation of the Ralph M. Brown Act. Now, I know what current price is waiting for. For God's sakes, FBI, will you just indict the guy already? Please, he's waiting. Every day he wakes up, he's nervous. Just get it over with. Indict him already. God damn, indict him and Mrs. Price, the second fake wife, so he can get on with his business. Because he wants to rat out Herb Wesson. Fuck you, Paul Krikorian.
No, we're not adjourned yet. You guys can go. All right. There being no other business before the committee, we are now adjourned.